I'm an addict called Benjamin. Public service announcement. It takes a lot of work to do this and put this convention on. We have a whole group of people here that meet and discuss the problems that you all bring to the committee and say, like, we like prayer and we like this and we like that and we don't like that. And we try to accommodate and fix all that stuff. And they do a great job. And, you know, unless you sit in those meetings diligently and over again to see how this process works, you have no idea how much work it takes to put this convention on. And I think that we have a chair, a vice chair, we have merchandise, we have registration, we have the people who make the goddamn coffee, okay? And it's a lot of work, but I think you all should give them a fucking round of applause. Who knew addicts could be this organized? We could possibly take over the world if we could stay out of jail. All right. I see so many people here I know, and it's always a pleasure to be here. I've been coming here for years, and so many people in this room have been a part of my recovery and helped me in different times because, you know, we learn how to live life on life's terms from each other. And, you know, there's a part of the basic text that talks about, you know, sometimes we go through things with a courage not our own. Because it's not our own. You guys dragged my ass through that shit. I didn't have any courage at all. You're like, come on, keep moving, son bitch. Let's go. And that's how I get to still be here. Because it's a we process, you know. And there's so many people I can see here that make a difference in my life today. And Greg introduced me, and I'm from West Virginia. And a lot of people, you know me, and I came from somewhere else. And it took me a long time to surrender that I live in West Virginia. Because, like, I would be here, and some people walk up and go, even at this convention, and go, like, where y'all from? And I go, like, Central New York. I've been in fucking West Virginia for 3 years. But, you know, because, you know, I had some things go on, and, like, my house burnt down and all this stuff, and it was a lot of traumatic stuff. And I always just sort of wanted to go home until, like, you guys kept teaching me over and over again stuff like, you know, your home is where your heart is and where your people are. And you guys, like, just kept loving me while I was going through all that stuff. The people in West Virginia, in Morgantown, Fairmont, Clarksburg, Pack Lake, Charleston, Huntington, you know, just, and one day I was driving home from speaking at Ryan's home group. He did a great job last night, right? Yeah. And, you know, Beckley's one of those places where, like, I'm leaving because they're like, let's go out to dinner, and it's fucking snowing, flakes about this big, you know, and I'm driving back towards Clarksburg, and I was cold, I was wet, I was tired, and I drove down a long way to go speak at this meeting and stuff, and my little head said, I just want to go home and get in my shower and go to bed. And then I had to think about that the whole rest of the way home because I was talking about West Virginia in here. So when he introduced me and says, like, he's from Fairmont, it's like, that's the truth today because I'm not in denial about where my feet are. Yeah. And it's real hard to recover when you don't know where your feet are. And if you're ever confused about any of that, like I don't know what's going on and I'm overwhelmed, I don't know what's going on. It's like, look down. Because your feet are over there in yesterday, and they haven't made it to tomorrow yet. They're right where you're standing, you know. And it's like right where your feet are. That's where you are. And barring like catastrophic lawnmower incident, okay, that's where you're going to be, you know. So either way, I've had the pleasure to have met and known the gentleman that I'm introducing for a while now, a long while. And I love Nick. I consider Nick a brother. And we have a lot of interests outside of Narcotics Anonymous because you guys gave us a life. You know, like, because of you, I can do other stuff. I don't just like go to a meeting and go home. It's like I have a life and I get to do stuff. And a lot of that times when we go out and do stuff in a group, Nick's part of that group because he's just part of my family, and part of my support network. And he texts me and asks me questions, and I give him answers, and then he texts back and goes, "Good thought," or "Fuck you." It depends on what the answer to the question is, apparently. But that's okay, because, people used to give me suggestions, and they got one of those two answers. Like, okay, I'll do that, or, it's one or the other. But, so we do things outside of we have a life, and we have interest in common, and it's a brotherhood, and I love this person in my life, and he helps my life be better. And a lot of you in this room helped my life be a lot better than whatever it was that I had before I got here, which was barely a life. So I never know what Nick's going to say, because Nick's sort of introspective. And you catch him on a weird day, and he comes out with these sideways answers that I have to even think about. I'm like, what did he just say? And so you get Nick however Nick is going to be today, because that's our relationship is sort of based on the fact that Nick is sometimes very talkative and right there, and other times very introspective, and sometimes I have to actually walk up to him because I can see his little brain doing this and go, what are you thinking about? And he'll go, I'll let you know when I'm done. And that could be a minute, or that could be I'll talk to you in 3 weeks. I never know. But what I do know is he's a brother, and I love him. And without Narcotics Anonymous, I would never met Nick. And Nick's going to be Nick up here, and so you get whatever I get. And some days I don't know what that is, but I accept him exactly the way he is, because he's beautiful. Nick L.
All right, that's enough of that shit. All right, can everybody hear me? Are we good? Okay. What? First of all, I want to thank the other speakers and everybody that's done the convention. Like I said, or like what was said earlier, without the people putting in the footwork to sacrifice their time to make sure that we have a good time, none of this would happen. And wherever Ryan is, fuck you. I didn't want to have to follow him, and now I have to. So I just want to let you all know that I'm probably going to be an emotional mess, because there's a whole lot of memories that I have here that have helped shape my recovery. Love you. And one of the first ones that I had, the first convention that I came to, it was the one, I don't think you'll mind, it was the one after Tony D spoke at. So I was moving into a house, and I missed that one. And, I came here for the next one, and my very dear friend Erica asked me to read How It Works for one of the opening meetings, and I had no idea what the hell I was getting myself in for. So when I hear everybody saying, we, it reminds me of Deliverance. So I didn't know how to take that. But that really meant a lot to me for her to do that and welcome me into this whole process and to have you all as my family. And I got emotional about it sitting here Friday night listening to the speaker and hearing the readings, and I just have a lot of really awesome memories here. So I wanted to start out by saying this, so my sponsor spoke here a few conventions back. His name's Delmas, if you guys remember him. And how that happened, And I said that I would share this story. How this happened was he and I were sitting down to share, my ninth step. And before we got started, we're sitting at this little Mexican restaurant, and he says, you know what, man, before we get started, like one of your sponsee brothers had mentioned about me speaking at the convention, and I don't know if I want to do that or not. And I said, hold that thought. So any of you that know me, like I carry around this big giant service binder. It's got every IP in it, all the guide to local services, all that stuff. And I've got it in my backpack, and I reach in and I pull out a speaker resume, and I slide it across the table to him. And he goes, you got to be frickin' kidding me. So he chuckled and he sat it down. So a few conventions after that, like I'm standing over there getting ready to register on a Friday, and Destiny was sitting there with her sponsor Christina at the time, and like I hugged them and talked to them for a little while. And I get closer to the front where I can like actually start writing my name on my badge, and she goes, hey, I got something for you. She slides a speaker resume across the table to me like it's the most important document I'm ever going to fucking read. And my response was, you got to be frickin' kidding me. And here we are. Like, that's just like kind of like what it says in the second step. We see coincidences and miracles are taking place in our lives. And I don't have any doubt that this is where I'm supposed to be. So I wanted to share that little bit. I thought it was funny. I really don't know where this is going to go, but I'm give you all everything that I have. So my clean date's February 11th of 2011. And I really don't want to talk about using, because if you don't know how to use and you're sitting in here, well, we'd still love you anyway, but you sure as hell not going to find out from me how to get high. So I remember for my entire life, I've always felt like a sense of displacement. Like I never fit in anywhere. Like even sitting around the dinner table with my family, I felt like I didn't belong. So like it's been kind of a theme for my entire life is I've always been looking for some place to fit in. It's kind of like Tetris, get in where you fit in. Like who would have known that I would find my home here, a bunch of group of, you all. So yeah, like I remember what it was like before I got here. And the only reason I remember my clean date, and Benjamin will appreciate this, I think it was like February 5th or February 6th. It was the day of the Super Bowl, and the Packers and the Steelers were playing. And I'm a Packers fan. He's a Bears fan. And the only reason I remember that because that was the last Super Bowl that they won. And like a few days later, like I had just burnt every single bridge. Like I could not get any more fucking dope as hard as I tried. And if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. So I remember like sitting in my apartment for like months, like coming down off of everything, and like sitting in my little papasan chair. I don't think I even got up to use the bathroom very often. Like it was a horrible experience. Like I remember coming, like my cat sitting on my chest and looking at me, and I could have sworn that she was like talking to me, like I'm talking to you all. She's like, dude, you're fucking up. It was a really horrible experience, and I still remember that to this day. I heard somebody share in a meeting yesterday or a couple of days ago that they said, if you don't forget your last one, then you haven't found it yet. And I really appreciate that, and I really needed to hear that. So what happened? Like I believe that I'm the product of two addicts, and I say that I believe that I'm a product, and I'll get to that in a little bit. There's a reason for that. But I didn't need or want for anything growing up. Like I didn't. I was brought into a very loving and caring group of people, who raised me, loved me unconditionally, regardless of how much I fucked up. And I'm going to curse, by the way. Like, I really just don't give a shit that I'm just being me. And I probably will recite stuff from the literature, too, because I fucking read it. So, yeah, I like I said, I always felt like a sense of displacement. And, like, I can remember just using to try to fit in with people. Like, it didn't matter what it was, what the substance was. Like, if I could just pretend that I was like somebody or we could be like-minded, then I felt like I belonged somewhere, so, like, I don't know, I would kind of fast forward through a lot of this shit, because, like, I did a lot of grimy, dirty shit when I was using. I just did, and I know you all understand what that is and what that's like. So, I get clean. Well, I guess I shouldn't say I got clean. I stopped using it at one point in time, and I was introduced to our sister fellowship first. The Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous actually provided me with a safe environment until I could find you all, until I could find my home. So I'm grateful for them and what they did. They didn't turn me away. They didn't say, you're a piece of shit, we don't fucking want you here. You go down the street and find another fellowship. So the Fellowship of AA helped get me here. I'm eternally grateful for that. So I only had experience with that. I didn't know Narcotics Anonymous existed. So I would come into, like, outpatient places, and, they would, like, tell me about myself, and I didn't appreciate that, because, like, you don't fucking know me. And I don't know, like, nothing really clicked, like, nothing stuck. I wasn't ready yet. So, like, I went to more and more places, and, like, it just kind of became, like, the norm. Like, shit goes south, and, like, I crash land in a facility for a couple of days, or, I get arrested, I get locked up, and, I can just kind of go back to what I was doing. Like, that was almost like a safe environment for me. I remember the first time I got arrested. I'll share this story because it's kind of funny. So, like, I remember I got arrested in Virginia Beach, and I remember them, locking me up, and there was one guy in the holding tank, like, right there, and he didn't move, didn't blink, he just stared at the fucking wall, and, like, me being in the state that I am, I was kind of terrified. I was like, I don't want to blink or move either. It's kind of like a T-Rex, their vision's based on movement. So I didn't want to do anything, and, like, he would just get up and pace back and forth, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna fucking die. And he eventually stopped, and he came over to me, and he said something along the lines of, like, asking me if I wanted a sandwich, and I said, no, man, I'm not gonna be here that long, thanks though. So that was my first experience with jail. Not something that I wanted to go back to. So, yeah, let me kind of get back on track here. So, like I said, I had been into a lot of, like, inpatient, outpatient places, just because, like, that's the only help that I knew. That's the only place that anybody knew where to send somebody like me. People don't know what they don't know. So, like, I was never told about a 12-step fellowship. People just sent me to this facility, and it's like, okay, well, you can sit here for a little while, and then when you get out, you guess you'll be okay. Pay attention to what's going on, because you may need it. And I don't remember anything from those places. So, anyways, it's weird. So, like, they started, telling me about this stuff, and they had a 12-step meeting in the on the second floor of this place that I kept going to. That was court ordered to, I should say. Like, I just kept going, and, like, I'm one of those types of people that, like, if I hear some good shit in a meeting, like, I'll wait till the next meeting to where that person who said it isn't there, and I'll recite it back to everybody. And people are like, oh my God, you must have been here for a while. It's like, I have, as a matter of fact. So, like, I would always wait to, like, share some good shit or things that I heard in movies that sounded really profound. And people would just kind of be like, they were shaking their heads like they understood everything that I was sharing. And I was like, all right, like, this is cool. I can do this. But that's just kind of like the theme for most of my life. Like, I was a chameleon. I fit in with whatever environment I put myself in. If there were murderers and rapists over here in this corner, I could be like them. Like, we're all actors. Like, put us anywhere and we'll blend in. So like, I remember that the information that I was being given wasn't sticking. Nothing was taking hold, and I remember I lived in Morgantown at the time, and I went to school at WVU. I still don't have a degree to fucking show for it. So, like, I kept using there, and I got arrested again. It was after a football game, as a matter of fact. And I remember I called my mom because she bailed me out of jail. And she was like, I don't know what to fucking do with you. Like, I've got nothing. Like, I don't have any answers. I just don't know what I'm going to do. And she called my uncle, who moonlights as my attorney. That's a handy piece of information to have. And he called me, and I knew, like, as soon as I saw my phone ring, I knew it was him. And he's one of those types of people that, he is a religious man, but he's, like, loved me unconditionally. And when I say my uncle, like, it's my dad's best friend, and he's black, so, like, people always look funny when I say, oh, that's my uncle. But that man has, like, been nothing. He's the reason why I'm here. And I don't say that with any sense of dramatics. Like, it's a fact. So he called me and was like, man, we're going to have to do something, because there's no way in hell you're not going back to jail. Like, you can't make it there. And he was right. So he ended up calling this facility. And, when you get a group of people who have no idea how it is to, like, find recovery or find some place where you can just kind of get some help, there's a lot of wires that get crossed. And, so my uncle called this place, and he's like, all right, we got you booked in. You're going to have a bed here in a couple of months. Just make sure that you're there. And I remember, like, I kept using, and this is before this Super Bowl happened. I just remember I kept using, and I finally got to a point where I've heard a lot of people share, where I woke up and I was like, why the fuck am I still here? Like, I'm trying to kill myself. I don't want to fucking be here anymore. I hated myself that much. And I thought everybody else did too. So what point was it for me to be here? I thought I was just here to suffer. And, like, I just run out of connections, burned too many bridges. Like, people were like, dude, you need to go that way. There's a lot of doors slammed in my face, and, like, nobody wanted me around, except for, like, a couple family members. So, my mom comes to Morgantown, picks me up, and this is, like, kind of after I had already gone through the whole detox process, and I still look like shit. I remember I checked into this facility. I remember on the ride down, like, I was sitting there. It was in Huntington. So I'd made the drive from Morgantown to Huntington, and I got to about, if you're familiar with this 29th Street exit. I remember looking at my mom, and I was like, you realize that when I get out of here, I'm just going to go back to doing what I was doing, right? She didn't speak to me for the rest of the ride. So we get there and we pull up, and it was on a Saturday, and I checked in this facility that used to be an old hotel, and, like, they still had carpet and shit rolled up, so I was like, this can't be the right place. And we were, like, knocking on doors, ringing doorbells, like, trying to get in, and eventually we wandered down to a little side door, and this nurse came around and was like, what the fuck are you doing here? Can I help you? It's like, yeah, we had a check-in date for today, and she brought me into this whole intake process, took my photo, and I stayed in this treatment facility for 28 days, and I have to say this, and I don't say it for any sense of disunity or to share like any different kind of message, but I thought that I only had a problem with one substance, and our sister fellowship was where I thought I belonged, because that was the only thing that I thought I had a problem with. And I remember getting there, and I was introducing myself to people, and they were bringing in like these meetings, and I couldn't understand it because like we'd had like group meetings with people that were there at the facility, and then there would be other people that would come in from outside the facility, and I was like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, how come they get to leave? And I wasn't sure, like I didn't want to stay there. I did not want to be there. Like I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin that I was ready to just run out the door. And I only have what I bring in with me to Narcotics Anonymous. So like when I first got to this facility, like I was still real good about, telling you what you wanted to hear. So when like the counselors and therapists would sit me down and like talk to me, and it's like, so what are you going to do different? It's like, I'm going to do this. And they're like, well, that sounds like a really good plan. So I was really good about like fooling them even, which I'm sure they've heard the same shit over and over again. So I remember there was a group of people that came in one night, and my sponsor was in this group, and it was an H&I meeting. And they sat down, and they were like smiling, and they were laughing, and they were having a good time. And I hated them. I hated them. Like, it was like, why are you smiling? Like, you're high. You have to be. Like, there's just no way of getting around it. I didn't know how to smile or laugh or to have a good time and not get loaded. And that shit quit working a while ago. So they came in and they started like sharing their experiences, and I don't remember anything of what they shared, but I remember their faces. And I paid a lot more attention to the people who were coming in rather than what they were sharing, because I just like it was in one ear and out the other, like nothing stuck. But I could remember faces. Like I'm really good with that. If I've seen you before, like it was, oh yeah, I know where I've met you before, but I don't know your name. So like when they would take us to outside meetings, I would go up and talk to people. At least like, hey, I'm new, and they was like, well, that's nice. Keep coming around. And I can remember I got out of this facility, and I got out of this facility, and the most important message that they kept harping on was attend a meeting the day you get out. And I did that. And I drove from Dunbar back to Huntington. Well, my mom drove me. I didn't have a license or a car. I couldn't understand why. So, like, I went from Dunbar to Huntington, and I went to this meeting, and there was a guy who had taken, a group of people from that facility. He was there. He was one of the counselors. And I said, hey, man, like, who would be a good person for me to ask as a sponsor? And he, like, pointed out a couple different people, and I walked up to one of them. And I remember talking to him. I was like, hey, man, my name's Nick, and, I'm in the market for a sponsor, even if it's just a temporary one. And he took a hit of his cigarette and blew it in my face. He goes, are you looking for temporary fucking relief? And I remember, like, getting real scared and timid. Like, I just want relief, and I ran away. I remember him telling me that story, like, not long after that. I was like, for fuck, we'll never see him again. But I went to a meeting the next night with my tail tucked between my legs, and I walked up to that guy, and I asked him to be my sponsor. And then, like, the process just started from there. And I love that man. I love for what he gave me when I first got clean, because it was a very tough-nosed approach to Narcotics Anonymous. It wasn't that, oh, we love you, we're glad you're here. He said, Nick, these are meetings about recovery. You don't know anything about recovery. Sit down in that fucking chair, shut your fucking mouth, and listen to what we have to say. I needed that because that was the only thing that I could respond to at that point in time. And so, like, I've been battling a lot with myself here recently, just trying to figure out, like, am I like a loving, caring person, or am I the sit down, shut the fuck up kind of guy? Because like I said, like, that meant so much to me. Like, I needed that. I'm real good about getting ones over on people, and like, I needed that tough-nosed approach. And this man helped worked like the first 3 steps with me, and we started into the 4th step. And for whatever reason, he made a decision that he didn't think he needed to be in Narcotics Anonymous anymore, and he didn't get high. He just left, and like, I felt abandoned, like something that I've felt my entire life. It was like, I get clean, and people are like sticking around me more, and they want to be a part of my life. And then this person who meant so much to me left. I was like, fuck, I don't know if I want to stay here now. And like I said, he had his reasons, whatever they were. It's none of my fucking business. And I went and I told my grand sponsor about it, who's my sponsor now. And I always joke about it, like, I always think that he told people, like, he just felt sorry for me. He's like, oh, come here, man, I'll sponsor you, it's okay. Just because that's the kind of guy he is. And like, I started back over on the steps because I don't know why I made that decision. But I remember thinking to myself, like, I put a lot of time and effort into these steps, and then, like, this sponsor just kind of said, see you later. And, like, I don't know if I want to, like, engage in this process again and have that happen to me one more time. And then I took a different approach, because this is about, like, learning a new way to live, right? So I told him, I was like, I want to start over on the steps. I'm going to give you every fucking thing I've got. Like, all the bullshit, all the lies, the truth, as best as I know it. Like, it's going to come out on this paper. And I called him every single day for probably 4 years. Just because I was that terrified of, like, not having somebody in my life. I'm not codependent. So we started on this really amazing journey, and like, that kind of brings me into, like, more of the fun stuff that I get to talk about now, and that's like my memories here in Narcotics Anonymous. So that's what got me here, and these are just some of the things that I remember about recovery and about being here in this journey that I've got to engage in. There's a lot of people sitting in this room, like, I know your faces, and I've seen you before, and I may not know your names, but I know who, like, you're a member, and if I see you, like, around here, I know I can give you a hug. There's a lot of people that said they were going to heckle me. There's people that drove up here from Huntington just for today, just to hear me speak, and that really means a lot to me. It means that there are people who care about me. I'll elaborate on that later. So one of the really incredible things that I've gotten to experience in Narcotics Anonymous is being able to identify the sense of empathy that I can have with other human beings. And I remember this story, and I always like to share about this. I had about 6 months clean, and our area had put on its annual Halloween function, and they had asked this guy from Fairmont to come and speak. His name's Rob, and Rob's one of my absolute closest, dearest friends. I love that man because he's loved me unconditionally ever since I met him. And he was going through a really, really, really difficult time in his life. And he got up to speak, and he was very raw, and he was very honest, and I appreciated it because that's, like, again, 6 months clean. Like, I still haven't been able to figure out, like, oh, Nick, you're a nice guy, and you're loving and caring. Like, I was still like, yeah, tell me how it fucking is, dude. And I remember him telling the story about an incident that he got involved in, and, while using, and he said that his grandfather had told him to take the fear that he was experiencing and turn it into hate. I was like, I understand that. Like, that was the first concrete piece of evidence that I had of empathy. And that's what drew me to this program. Because, like, I can come to meetings today, even if you want to talk about the amount of dope that you used, who you used with, goes over my fucking head. I can't identify with that. If you're sitting in a meeting and you look at me and like, Nick, I'm terrified right now, or I'm happy, or I'm scared, I can identify with that. Like, I can feel how you are feeling, and that's what fucking makes this shit work for me. I can't identify with, somebody banging dope in a Speedway bathroom. I just can't, because I don't have that experience. So that really meant a lot to me, having that experience with 6 months clean. And and I got to come to convention, and I remember the speakers. Christina actually spoke here. She and I actually had the same clean date. She spoke here, and she did a really wonderful job. And I was like, I like these people. Like, they're pretty cool. And I remember sharing with people about the experiences here at Ripley and like how life-changing it can be. So, just to kind of on a side note, to elaborate on what Tony had yelled earlier about donuts. So, Tony and I have taken a lot of road trips together, like to and from Fairmont. Fairmont's like a second home to me. The North Central area, you guys are fucking awesome. So we we take a trip up to Fairmont for our friend's celebration, and on our way back we stopped. We stopped in Morgantown and stopped at a Sheetz, and there was they had just put out the donuts. Now, for any of you that don't know me, I'm a diabetic.
I didn't know.
He really didn't. So I remember getting like 6 donuts, and I ate all of those fucking things. Okay, it was 12. All right. All right. Yeah. So donuts make my life unmanageable too. They're so fucking good. So I just like these are the stories that I have to share with you all. They mean so much to me. And had I not gotten involved in this process, I wouldn't have these things to share with you all. That's what's so incredible about this. I don't know. I'll share a couple other things and stop because I don't want to hold you guys hostage. I didn't think Benjamin was ever going to shut up earlier. Yeah. Like, dude, you've already spoke here. Like, come on, man. Yeah, right? So I really love Benjamin. He's been an important part of my recovery. So one of the things that I had to experience since I've been clean was, and this is the part where it's going to get really emotional for me and really difficult to talk about. It's February 27th of 2014. I want to just describe this day for you because it's just how I remember it. I had a couple people living with me in a one-bedroom apartment. I was starting my own recovery house. So, like, the girl that I was seeing was in the bed next to me, and I had a buddy sleeping on the couch, and there was somebody else sleeping in my recliner. And there's a knock on the door, and it's my uncle. And my mom had gotten hospitalized because she took a real bad fall in their garage and messed her face up real bad. And he came into my apartment, and he kind of like, can I have a moment alone with Nick? And my first thought was like, oh shit, my grandma's passed away. He sat down on the bed next to me, and I still remember it to this day. He says, Nick, I have the unfortunate pleasure of telling you that your mom's passed. And that was just started like a string of like really awful things that had taken place. So So I remember him telling me that, and then, a few months later, that same young lady that was in the bed with me, we were expecting, and she had a miscarriage. And then not too long after that, my favorite cat ran away. I love that fucking cat, man. So, like, here are 3 things that I had addressed and written down on this reservations list that I did with the first step. And they all happened back to back to back. And I can remember thinking that, okay, Nick, now's the time where you just kind of need to stuff all this shit down. You need to be there for your family. Can't let them see you be weak, which was the same mentality that I had all throughout while I was using. Because I'd never had to experience something like this before. And I remember I turned into the most angriest, hateful son of a bitch that ever walked the face of this earth. Instead of being there for the young lady while she was experiencing that miscarriage, I shut her out and got angry with her, real pissed off, shut her out. I built up those walls that, we talk about quite often. Rather than being there for my family, I isolated. I stayed at home. I didn't go to meetings. I didn't talk to anybody about it. It was just a really, really dark time in my life. And for me, it was a really dark time for me. And I know that there's other people that have had worse shit happen to them. And I'm not trying to compare things. This is just me. You guys have to keep in mind that my mom was my biggest supporter. And when I said earlier that, I said I believe that I'm the product of 2 addicts, I was adopted at birth in Bluefield, West Virginia. There's 2 people who were not related to me by any right, who loved me like I was their own. Now at that point in time, the biggest supporter, the one that I had, was gone. I wanted off this ride. I was done. It was fire all my sponsees, give away all my fucking literature. I'm done. This is over. I can't do this anymore. Emotional overload. I know why it hurts so bad is because I refused to talk about it with anybody. I kept all that stuff in. We say that, your feelings won't kill you, but not talking about them fucking might. Because it almost did with me. And I can just remember how empty and how lost I felt. And it's through the most traumatic times in my life that I've been able to experience some extreme growth. And just walls being demolished, doors opening, plenty of escape routes into a solution that's not of my own making. And I can remember Rob, my friend from Fairmont that I had mentioned earlier, and he sent me this. I called him after all this had taken place. I remember calling him, and he talked me down off of a very, very high ledge. Because I was ready to get loaded. I was just tired of it all. And from the trip from Huntington to Dunbar, where my family lived, he talked to me the entire way there. He had nothing to gain from it. But he knew what it was like to feel trauma. Because somebody was there for him, he was there for me. And not only that, too, there was a few people that I was sitting over here with before the meeting, Joe and Vicky, and I remember being at a meeting. It was their home group at the time, and I remember opening my mouth up and sharing, like, I'm done, I'm tired of this shit, I don't want to fucking feel anymore, like, I don't know if I'm going to get high right now or later, but something bad's going to fucking happen. Joe and Vicky walked up to me after the meeting and they said, would you like to come to our house for dinner? I'm used to people shutting doors in my fucking face. Members of Narcotics Anonymous opened them and welcomed me in. And I don't thank them enough, but they saved my life. Very, very grateful for them. Like all those people that had a hand in making sure that I didn't go without. People calling and checking on me, even fucking Wes, asshole. He's got a, love you. He's got a tough approach too. He's like, dude, you ain't been to a fucking meeting in a while. What the fuck is going on? Like, you get what you get here. And that was exactly what I needed to get. So, like, the passing of my mom kind of just shaped a lot of things that, like, I feel a stronger connection to the God of my understanding today, because of the journey that I've been able to travel since her passing. And it's funny how, like, these traumatic things happen and we don't think we can make it through them, and it usually ends up leading us to something even greater. I've been awarded that in Narcotics Anonymous. Like, I'm so grateful for that shit. There's so many other things like I want to talk about. How am I doing on time? Good? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. I didn't bring my phone because I don't bring my phone to fucking meetings. So I share like a couple other things and stop talking. But so like Benjamin had mentioned earlier, like when he was introducing me, like we've gotten to go outside of the realm of Narcotics Anonymous, and I got snot hanging, hang on. We've gotten to go outside the realms of Narcotics Anonymous and participate in things like go to music festivals. And, you know, it's weird because there are other people that will look at me that, like, you go to music festivals? Like, we don't, like, isn't there dope there? Are the people getting high? And it's like, yeah, I work a fucking program so that I can go to these things. So, like, I've gotten involved with, you know, Benjamin and Rob and a whole other group of people that, you know, if I apologize if I don't mention your all's names. But, like, there was a group that I got introduced to. And I'll share this story with you all because it's really, really important to me. Thank you. So there's this one particular band that I really, really love, and they had just put out a new album. And I went and I got it in the mail, and I was gonna go meet my grandma in Charleston. You know, take her to breakfast. We're gonna have spend the day together, and I put this album in and I'm listening to it, and it's just kind of more like second step stuff, like coincidence and miracles and gathering evidence. Like I pull off the exit of the interstate and like I pass by the graveyard where my mom is buried, and the lyrics came over the radio, and they were the loudest fucking thing I heard in my entire life. It says, "If you call on me, I'll come running like a coyote." I don't know about you all, but I'm not afforded the belief that something greater than me doesn't exist today. That meant so much to me. Like, I almost had to stop the fucking car because I was crying so hard, just shaking. Like, and I get to experience those kinds of things and here in Narcotics Anonymous because I've allowed to open up my heart to let those things expose themselves to me. It's really wonderful. And there's another person over here I wanted to mention too. Like, I came to a workshop at the convention after my mom had passed, and the topic of the workshop was why we stay. I remember sitting in there, and Kurt and Mike were in there, and they were sitting behind me. And I spoke up, and I said, I'm an addict. My name's Nick. The reason I stay is because you won't let me leave. And I proceeded to go into this long spiel of, how much pain I was in, how much hurt that I was experiencing. And I actually had to leave the workshop because I didn't want to see you all. I didn't want you all to see me cry. And Kurt spoke that night at the convention, and I came up to him Sunday, just bumped into him, and I said, hey, man, I thank you for what you shared. I really appreciated it. And he goes, you were in that workshop, weren't you? The Why We Stay. I said, yeah, I was. And he goes, dude, how cool is it going to be like in 6 months when you come back and you grow through this process, you can share that with us and how incredible that stuff's going to be. Like we were just talking about that, a whole group of us were like not too long ago. And it wasn't until after the fact, I may have already told him this story, but I said, that son of a bitch dope fiended me into coming back to the convention. Like, those are such incredible memories that I have, not only of Ripley, but of recovery. And there's so many other things that, like, I could probably sit here and share with you all, but for the interest of time and as much as I'm getting emotional up here, I don't think that I can do much of it justice. And, my sponsor couldn't be here today. He had to work. He just couldn't get out of it. And, I miss him, just his presence. Like, I see him quite frequently. There's so many people, like I said, sitting in this room that you all have helped keep me clean. All of you have. I'm a byproduct of this. Like, how cool is that? Like, it's one of those things, like, we can make recovering addicts here. We don't even need, like, a template. We can just throw a bunch of shit together and... I don't know. There's another guy over here too, and I'll share this last. This is the last thing I'm going to talk about. There's another guy over here that I had the privilege of sponsoring for a little while, and he'd come from Morgantown too to Huntington, so automatically we have that small little connection. Like, oh hey, I'm from Morgantown too. I came to Huntington, and I remember him sticking around, and he was really resistant to this whole process, much like I was, because I didn't want to fucking be here either. And he came around. He stayed at this house that I stayed in, and I didn't live too far from there. And so, like, I was always calling him, like, "Hey, man, you want to go to a meeting?" And he eventually just asked me to sponsor him, and I was like, "Yeah, man, it'd be an honor." And like, this guy would come over to my apartment every single day, and we would play video games for hours. It was more of a friendship than a sponsor-sponsee relationship. But I didn't know that at the time, like trying to talk recovery to him, and it's like, oh shit, duck. And just for some like outside issues, like he had some legal issues, he had to move back to Morgantown, and through this whole process of like dealing with the loss of my mom and having all this stuff happen to me, like he showed up at my mom's funeral. My sponsor showed up at my mom's funeral. There were a couple people from the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous that showed up, sat in the back, and they just kind of like, we love you. And I remember thinking at that time, like, I want to get high so bad, but what kind of message is that going to give him? He's another one of those people that helped save my life, that helped keep me cemented in the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. And I'm grateful that he's here, because I love him very much. He's crying too. Who would have thought? I came in here just a big ball of shit. Six and a half years later. Thanks for letting me share. I love you guys.